Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Happy April, y'all. Welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. Y'all see this little translucent background? I'm so excited. I've wanted to do this for so long with having like the Try Beginner's Luck logo in the background and then me here. It's not perfect, but it's progress, right? And my computer is really old, but somehow I did an upgrade and I'm able to do this. So hashtag winning. We're going to keep the winning party going. I get to bring to y'all a gentleman that I've known for a few years before I even started Try Beginner's Luck. Actually seeing them at races and seeing a tent, and I guess it's like a trailer, and they always had food and a lot of people surrounding them. And I was like, who is this group? And when they come out, they're in green forest. And I say green forest because the team kits are green and they have a big Z they get to wear across their chest. And it wasn't until probably today's year old, i.e. last year, that I realized, oh, this team is named after this person. Yes, I got it. And I was like, this makes much more sense now. How did you get to be named this? Well, with that said, I get to bring to you a gentleman who's been in the sport since 1999. He started this particular team so he started coaching way before he started triathlons, but he was a swim coach. But then he got into the tri space and he started tri coaching for fun in 2001. He built his team in 2005. He's a dad, he's a coach, he's a fellow triathlete, and I get to welcome to this stage, or this podcast, not stage, but maybe we're coming to a stage near you. I don't know where this thing is going to end or where it's going to continue to go. But for right now, I get to bring to you Mr. Ed Zerkle of Team Z. Welcome, Ed, to Try Beginner's Luck. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really excited. And let me just give you guys some history. Yes, I said they have this big tent and they have this trailer, but what you don't know is they have the full caboodle. That trailer also comes with dedicated porta potties at certain events. And let me just tell you,
The bonus.
I may not be a member of the team, but Ed saved my life last year at Eagle Man when I needed to use the restroom right before the race. And I was like, please, please. He's like, yes. So Ed, thank you for always being kind and generous. And
Not always. Sorry. It's only because you're a special person. We get asked all the time. We do bring those porta potties in to basically pamper our members. And obviously, as you know, it can be a hard place to find a restroom. So we get asked all the time. It's hard. I've actually thought about renting a few extra and like charging $5 a pop to help pay for it to just service the community. You know what I mean? But all that aside, yeah, that's just one of the perks of being on our team.
Well, we're going to find out all about that. And I say thank you. So thank you. And
You're
this
welcome.
is my public service announcement. Check them out. Especially if you're looking for a dedicated team with coaching, which we'll find out more about in just a moment. Ed, it's been a long time coming. I'm so excited to have you. I want to get right into your story because I know a lot of your athletes who are around the DMV area and probably even beyond that. But you have a very unique team. And what I'm stressing, or what I would like to stress, is on the podcast, we talk about different types of teams. We talk about the national teams where you're with the brand, you have clubs, you have dedicated organizations, but you are a team with dedicated coaching, which is a little bit different than some of the more national teams that have dedicated coaching. Like uh, Maria Simone's group, No Limits. They're very different than what you provide. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But for right now, I want to talk more about you.
Okay.
How did you come into this sport in 1999?
Well, I'll try to keep my answers succinct. So feel free to, if I start to go off on storytelling mode, to just cut me off.
That's the whole point. Tell your story. I'm not
Okay.
going to cut you off.
Yeah. So I grew up as a swimmer and ended up swimming at Virginia Tech in college. And after graduate school, I moved here to DC and got a job with one of the consulting houses. And immediately they sent me away to projects working out of state, mostly Army depots or Navy shipyards. And I didn't even have an apartment here in DC. I was one of those true, used to call road warriors. I lived in hotels 100% of the year. Didn't have a car, cell phone bill, or cable bill, or anything. And one of the side benefits of that, which became a detriment, I think, was eating on the company nickel and eating at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse every night. And for the first time in my life, having not been an athlete after, finishing undergrad and grad school, where I rode in grad school, I just lost focus of myself and my goals and what I liked out of life in terms of athletics. And I gained about 50 pounds. It was the first time in my life I had sort of found myself in this position. I'd always been racing at a pretty high level with great coaches and great teammates, and I just kind of lost my way. And I think a big part of that was that my career wasn't driving me as a consultant. I knew that from very early on that I wasn't going to be a consultant in the end. But like most of us growing up in the world, we didn't know where we would be. And this is the start of my story. Where it ends is a success. I mean, it's sheer luck. And I think the message you could share is like one of those, like, do what you love and success will follow. Not necessarily the riches of the world, but that's true in my case. So what initially got me into it was just looking for a reason to get out of bed in the morning and not drink at night. So honestly, like, not eat, overeat, drink, have focus, become an athlete again. So I went out and bought a bunch of books on how to coach yourself for running. And I signed up for the Marine Corps Marathon, like 96 or so. And I started to train myself, made a lot of mistakes along the way, lost all that weight, then celebrated for a few years by putting it all back on again, and found myself in this station of life where a lot of people, normal people these days, we have our good years and our bad. And I can relate to running 20 miles at 7-minute miles. And I can also relate to not being able to physically run a mile because I'm too heavy. So I've been both places several times in my life. I'm not bragging about it, just big part of my story, right? So as I found myself needing another goal, I was just, how to date myself, this was out on Yahoo search because Google didn't exist yet. And I found that Ironman Florida had just opened a race entry, and I just signed up for it. I didn't own a bike. Never done a triathlon before, but the swim was in my bag and the run was something I had been learning about. So I figured I could go out and buy a bunch of books just like I did for running to coach myself. And so I started to train for this triathlon, and I wrote my own training plans, and very quickly found out that I was just lonely and I was looking for people to train with. I just recently moved back to DC for the first time, had an apartment, and I joined I was working on a local project, and I joined the Fairfax County Master Swim Team just for companionship. And it turned out that the people in that group, just to bounce back, your question was how I got into this, right? I'm tracking perfectly. Okay, I'm making sure I'm not off subject
great.
yet.
This is really good.
Okay. The people in the pool, I walked in, it was winter, it was dark out, and a bunch of guys and girls, in their 30s, 40s, whatever, but they had come in from trail running. It had been raining out, and they had headlamps on, and one of them had an Ironman tattoo on his calf. And this logo is something that most of us in the sport, so we know what it means now, but in the 90s, it wasn't very common. There was only 3 Ironmans in all of North America. 2 of them were brand new, Lake Placid in Florida. And even the Ironman Florida race field, the year I did it, was only 1,700 people. and it was announced as the largest race in the history of the, mass swim starts in history. And I was like, fascinating to me how far the sport's come since then. But 1,700 people in it. So anyway, this one guy has this Ironman tattoo on his leg, and it turns out what I found was a small group of swimmers who were basically, for the most part, runners and bikers who were, making their way through the pool. Some good swimmers, but mostly triathletes. And as you know, most of us in the sport know it's not easy to find that type of environment. So I really feel super lucky to find a master's team full of runners and bikers who could help me on my journey while I could also help them in exchange maybe a little bit with swimming. But the point was, it wasn't a swim team. It was a triathlon team that was swimming together effectively. They kind of became my social network, taught me a lot about the sport, helped guide me along the way without officially becoming my coach. That gentleman with the Ironman tattoo on his calf did take me under his wing and gave me a lot of advice and helped me avoid a lot of mistakes that I know I would have made without his help as I journeyed towards that first Ironman. They were the real reason why I continued beyond that. It was the community, it was the people, it wasn't. And the side benefit of the sport and the big carrot to help me stay out of restaurants and go to bed early and get up early and train was the medal, and all that was just ancillary in my mind. It was that I enjoyed being around these people and doing these things and investing my life in it. And they started to take me to do more stuff. The Chesapeake Bay swim, Trans Tampa Bay relay swim. 3 of us did 27 miles. Just the endurance community was what sort of swallowed me up. And I started to talk about it as I became more excited about it and what I was doing for myself. And again, in the background, forgetting that I was a consultant full time. This is where I always wanted to be, and just had stuck all my extra time. And next thing I know, people at work are starting to ask me, hey, when you started, you were overweight and you were just training for a 5K. But look at you now. And do you think I could do a 10-mile run someday? And do you think I could do a triathlon? And of course, you're like, if it's in you, like announcing and being in the public eye is in you. I think coaching is just something that is innate in me, my ability to want to help people. It's something I enjoy, but then just to feel open enough that people feel comfortable asking me for help. I think before I knew it, I've got a little running group at work. I'm helping people buy bikes and how to learn how to buy shoes, and just doing it for fun, not because I was getting paid. I just enjoyed it. I think like most people like to talk about what they know. You like to help people if that's in your personality, and it just fit. So before I knew it, this one woman in my swim lane at that swim practice I told you about, who was an ex-swimmer, excellent swimmer, named Julie Opplinger. You may know her. She's now Julie Rodden. If you haven't met her yet, you will. She's in our community. But she asked me if I would help her train for her first Ironman, and so I did. And then skipping the story ahead a little bit, she worked for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So after I had helped her with her goal, she and her boss, who I used to swim with in high school, to make it an even smaller world, right? They asked me to help them build the triathlon program for the National Capital Area of Team and Training here, in DC. So I signed on to do that, and I coached for them for 6 seasons, and helped to define the program and basically build the business model for what Team Z would become down the road. But that was never really the plan. It was always just, how do I survive coaching a complex sport full of beginners? Let's just take a step back. DC beginners, which I think are different because there's so many type A, type AA, type AAA people in DC that can still be beginners in this sport, but their expectations vary so greatly, and they can be so demanding and intense because they're such captains of whatever they do in their normal everyday life, right? It's a different challenge, I think, for us in this region, but I just built this, how do you survive as a coach model in this group training environment and do a good job? I mean, literally, what had caught me off guard was, I know you're aware of the variety and backgrounds that can come to the sport.
Yes. And I think this is a good place to pause. I'm not stopping you. We're just hitting the pause button. You said so much about like how you got started. And I think it's important for me to one, recap that, but also that community piece is so real. And we talk about that. I would say 85% of the people that come on this podcast has something to say about the community of this sport and how that's how they were introduced. And that's what keeps them in. It helps them to get healthy. But you also talked about, from a man's perspective, the yo-yo of dieting, which I have a lot of experience with. You know, that's something that people don't talk enough about, Ed. Yeah. And, you know, as I'm on a journey this year of just what is it like to relearn and retrain your mind to eat healthy in a bigger body so that you can run and be efficient. It's not that you can't do it. It's about being maximally efficient in your body as you are going through the different seasons, because each season is different. And I think I really want to talk more about that, because more people don't talk about the struggles of weight loss. You have people who, especially now with Instagram and social media being so prevalent, people showing the highlights, and you only see a certain body type that's highlighted. And that's mainly because they really do look great in those kits. Whereas someone like me, I'm like, dang it, I got to find the right kit in order to look remotely decent. And that's a real struggle. Not to mention.
You also 100% understand. I'll let you finish your thought. I'm sorry. But I'm getting excited about it.
No, this is a conversation. So, we're bantering back and forth, but I just get it. And I had no idea that you swam competitively. Like, all of these things are just so important about people to understand more about who they are.
Right. So community, the weight loss, the different body types, all of these things are big cornerstones of why Team Z is successful. And it's not like I started out with this business model and said, this is what I want my organization to become. I just became a coach because I like it. And the people who started Team Z, this is going to tie into what you're talking about. I promise. I'll try to bring it back. If I don't, I want to talk about the kit that you just mentioned, right? The whole body image and all of that, because the people that started Team Z were folks that had been through the team and training program. And then my buddies at that master swim team and I started a club called TriCats, or Capital Area Triathlon Club, which is predecessor to the DC Tri, or, DC Tri is obviously king in our community now, and they do a great job. Back then, there wasn't anything like that. And we built a club of about 400 people, and it was just modeled like DC Tri. We were not as well developed as DC Tri has become today, but it was just basically a chat group and a meeting every month, and we had a kit as a team, but there was no organized coaching or training plans for people, whether they were fast or new. There was no opportunity to learn at any level. It was just a social organization, which is basically what most clubs are designed to be. It's not a slam on them, right? It just is what they are. They're free, $30 a year, whatever. How can you have expectations that aren't met when you don't pay anything for it, right? So that was the reason Team Z started, was because of those things that were lacking that they were used to receiving at team and training. This is our team goal. These are the races we're training for. This is the day we're going to be at track practice. This is where we're riding, where we're running. This is the clinic on how to change flat tires. This is how to buy running shoes. Just the whole methodology about taking a group of people from zero to the finish line of their first sprint. What are all the things you have to do was what I had gotten good at with team and training, or just my consulting background leading me to defining or documenting how to do these things so that you can repeat it more effectively year after year. Well, when I was done with team and training, literally I was just getting exhausted trying to coach for them, train myself, and be a full-time account or consultant. And this group of people that had come from team and training into that club had decided they wanted to race an Ironman together. And at the time, we didn't offer that through team and training here in DC. We only did half iron distance races. So this group of people literally took me out to a bar. They had already decided how much they passed a hat, voted on how much they'd be willing to pay for a coach every month. And they took the average of it. And they took me to a bar and they literally got me drunk and said, this is what we want to do. And we want to hire you to be our coach, right? So we think you're good at this and you should do it for a living. So let's start training. And they picked Ironman USA, which was what's called at the time Lake Placid. And this was the summer of 2005 that we had this meeting. And they picked to race Lake Placid in the summer of 2006. So we started to train for this race, this really intimidating, massively difficult event, right? But all of these people were born out of the team and training program, all of them beginners, the absolute beginners, some of them overweight, some of them very fast. Just what brought them together was the sport, and as we've mentioned already, the community. And nobody cared if you were an FBI agent or a janitor. I had both. No one cared if you were 100 pounds overweight and classified as morbidly obese, or if you were on the podium at the very first race you did because you're just a gifted athlete. I had both, right? They all bonded. They did it on their own. I mean, I helped create a triathlon club that gave them the opportunity to bond. And maybe I taught them with team and training, but they were the ones that invited me, literally invited me to start Team Z. So I started to coach them. We didn't have a name, so we just put Team Z as a placeholder until we thought of something cooler. And we just started to train for Lake Placid in 2005. And before I knew it, other people started to ask if they could join. And so consultant starts playing with numbers on a spreadsheet. Economy turned. Until then, I was doing both full time because my passion and vision had become, this is what I want to be in life now, right? And I realized very shortly after that that what I had been doing by training for ultra open water, ultra distance cycling, triathlon was running from my life. Not necessarily in a negative way or a bad way, but searching, maybe is a better word, for what do I want to be and what do I want to do, because the career was not fulfilling for me. And I was depressed probably and lonely, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a dog, didn't have a yard to mow, right? So the sport was my outlet and then became my community and support. But these people, again, just by doing what you love, like I said, the whole success thing, the opportunity was presented to me because of stuff groundwork I had laid. But I really feel very fortunate. Now, the point of all of this is to say the culture of Team Z was formed by Team and Training and the Leukemia Society. It was formed by these beginners who were willing to give of themselves to raise money for strangers, right? And to be so exposed and vulnerable to show up with other beginners and just say, hey, here I am, overweight, fast, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't swim, I won't put my face in the water. They all started and grew up together. And so I just recognized when we started this team just how special that was, because right, wrong, or indifferently, ultra endurance community it's vibrant and we're all welcoming, but very few organizations are set up to enable the beginner to be successful. The local running club, super nice people, but they're running 7 to 8 minute miles. And if you can run 7 to 8 minute miles, you're going to be good. But if you're showing up for your first run ever, you're not even going to get out of your car because you're so intimidated by what you see, right? So bringing us all back together, like I just observed that at the finish line of this first race we did, the fastest people who had won hardware in their age group were still at the finish line 4 hours later, even though the clock is off, because our last person was finishing 2 hours after the race ended. And that just was obvious for me to see this is just not how the world normally works and how supportive this group was. So from that day forward, I've seen myself mostly as a steward for the culture of this team. I just protect it. I do everything I can to protect it and make sure that people joining our team know that everyone is welcome here. And my faster athletes know that it's a triage system. Whoever needs the most help is going to get it. I don't want anyone, if you're afraid to ride your bike over a speed bump and you have to get off and walk, that's okay on this team, right? If you join our team and you can't blow bubbles because you're afraid, that's okay here, right? We will take the time, even if it's years, for you to develop the confidence to do your first big boy or big girl open water swim. It's okay here. Now, the master swim team down the street, they're great people, but they're designed for people who know how to swim to join and to swim. It's not designed to teach an adult how to swim, right? So if someone who doesn't know how to swim shows up and they see people dive in and do butterfly and warm up or do a flip turn, right? It could scare the hell out of them. And so my approach is different, right? I bring people to the pool and we start by doing dead man's float and we build from there and build, it's anyway. So my point being that you've brought up culture, community, body type, yo-yo weighting, all that. I agree with you. When it comes to my team, it's like, I don't care if it takes you forever to build the confidence to do it as long as you do the work. And when you come talk about kits, I'm going to show you that this t-shirt will work on the bike ride if you don't want to have your tight kit with your little belly hanging out. You know what I mean? Like I'm with you 100%.
Because that's real. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I want people to know that you don't have to race your bike. It doesn't have to be $2,000, much less 10. You don't have to have the kit on. You can wear the Team Z green t-shirt and let it flap in the wind, and that's just fine as long as you have a way to carry your food. And if that's what makes you feel comfortable, then that's what you do. We spend too much of our life chasing norms and people's approval and everything else. It's not how it's supposed to be. And I know that as a community of triathletes, we welcome everyone for the most part, but who is enabling their success and teaching them that this is okay to ride a bike with a fat seat because it makes your butt feel better, right? Like you don't have to have a seat without a shock on it. Yeah, you'll be faster if you don't. But anyway, does that kind of bring it back? Like I'm 100% on the same page with you.
I am. I just kept I wanted to just throw something at the screen like, yes, yes, you get it. And there, again, just so many different nuggets.
Yeah.
So many different nuggets. When you talked about, I'm a swimmer, not like you going to VT, but
Right.
I would get freaked out seeing somebody do butterfly in a warm up because I'm like, is this how we start?
No.
Are we starting this way? Because,
No.
starting to doing butterfly, it's like you come out the gate out of breath. You don't even have room to build up. For those who, again, butterfly was always a struggle for me because I've always been heavier. So I didn't have that upper body strength to do that. And it would freak me out. And I actually went to, I don't know if you remember, Haynes Point had a master swim.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I went to that master swim, and that was when DC had a 50-yard outdoor pool, a 50-meter outdoor pool that
John, coach's name was John something.
John, and I saw people, I was like, come on, I cannot start my day doing this or even figuring out how to do, butterfly. Like all the other strokes I'm good on, but butterfly was always one of those that intimidated me. Now, and that's just from a person who's a swimmer. So imagine a non-swimmer seeing that. I totally
swimming down there you were swimming down there that long ago? Like, I mean,
I've been in DC for a while.
Yeah, but you've been in swimming for that long because that pool's been closed for a while.
Oh, yeah, I've swam. So I grew up swimming.
Okay. Oh, you
and
grew
it
up
wasn't cool to swim. Like now I look back on it and I see my mom showed me this picture, and there's like 5 or 6 Black folks on this swim team. Because back in the day, growing up in Augusta, Georgia, she was like, I want you guys to know how to swim because I didn't have the opportunity to know how to swim. And one of her cousins almost drowned. Not realizing that swimming, fast forward in my adult life, would be a key to me staying healthy. I didn't realize it then. I didn't like it then.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it then. And I was still, again, on the heavier side, embarrassed about the swimsuits because, that fat is real. And wearing those little T-straps with, having to see everything out when I'm in in middle school. I ended up starting my high school swim team. Now, it didn't last much longer after I left because it was an all-Black school. So people weren't swimming. I say that to say, I've been swimming for a very long time, and I grew up swimming and made decisions not to based off of hair and lifestyle. It didn't fit what I thought would be a good lifestyle back then. And I probably would still make the same decision because I was a musician. So I went to school on a music scholarship. Like that was I was very creative, or I should say, am creative. But all that to say, I'm getting off subject now.
That's all right. It's good conversation. John Flanagan was the guy's name.
Yep. And they kicked my butt, and that
was a hardcore workout, but you're definitely hitting the nail on the head. I mean, access to the ability to learn how to swim. I mean, so our sport presents the challenges, access to pools, but also access to bikes, our biggest limiters.
And that was my limit. Like I've been encouraged by some of my former guests to share more of my story inside of these things because
Right.
I was so embarrassed. Like I couldn't afford $150 plus for coaching a month. Like I couldn't even afford a bike. I didn't even get a bike until maybe 2018 because I was borrowing someone's bike for that amount of time. And so I what I'm saying is if you are interested and you're passionate about this sport, when you get in community, there's not anything that people won't provide to you so that you can try.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find the right place. I mean, I'll be straight. Like,
True.
there are great organizations out there, and you are a perfect resource for people to find those, and me to a lesser extent. But you talk about bike shops like Phoenix Bikes in Arlington that does the use. If you haven't heard of them, you should check them out because they do support like youth, underserved youth, and recycling bikes and getting them out in the community. So
Mm,
um, there's some used bike shops like that, but there's ways to get. But anyway, my point being, like, this sport, there are plenty of people who will help, but it's not
exactly.
it's not always easy to find them. And what stares you in the face all the time is the shop ride at the local bike store, which is intimidating as hell. And this
It is.
group run and that master swim practice. And so
Yeah.
they can be intimidating. What they need is for someone to reach out, literally put their arm around them and say, it's okay that you don't know what's going on. And I get this is your first practice and you're probably scared, but I promise you by the end, you'll be smiling. Like, I've been
Mm,
doing this for 20 years. I've taught 2,000 adults how to swim, at least. Right. I know all of your excuses and your fears before you're going to say them, and I'm going to,
yeah.
put them aside. I remember, I was like, it might be 10 years ago now. One of my team members came to me and said, somebody from another team that's not around anymore, but they were pretty fast. I would just say they were on the sharper end of the spear. Someone actually asked at the swim star, so this, you're on that Team Z group, right? And that person said, yeah. And he goes, what is it, man, with you guys? You just celebrate mediocrity? And I was just, the guy looked at him and was like, literally, I think he said he gave him the double bird and said, absolutely, man. He's like, what's wrong with just having fun? Do you know what I mean? It was just like, but that's my point, is like those people, there's way less of that type of person in our sport. They're the loudest and they're the most seen and privileged and standing on top of the podium. And it's just doesn't have to be like that. There's room for all of us in the sport, but I really love working with the person on the other end of the spectrum. And and I have people on my team that are super fast who fit the mold we're talking about, that are just willing to just stop their workout on the track to help someone else because they're having a hard time, right? And again, it's just my observation of my team. I tell people you don't have to be that person to be on this team, but you have to understand that that's what we're about. And everybody's allowed to be here, including you, even if your goal is to focus on yourself and be introspective, and you're at our group rides because you want SAG support and you want the camaraderie, but you're there to train. I get it. But you have to understand that if I'm not there to cook your hamburger for you because I'm helping somebody who's crying in a ditch because they were scared a car got too close to them, that's where my focus is always going to be. And I mean, it's fun because it's fun to focus and help the newer athlete because it's so much more, I mean, infinitely more rewarding. 5% of the effort it takes to coach a fast, sharp end of the spear athlete, 5% of the time that you would put into this person will change this guy's life. Like, teach someone who doesn't know how to swim how to do an open water mile. I had an
Mm,
airplane mechanic, worked on Rolls Royce engines, pulled me aside at a swim meet in an alcove, twice my size, scared the hell out of me, and he just started to cry because he never thought he'd be able to do something like that before. And I was just like, I mean, look, it's the easiest thing in the world for me to do is teach you how to swim. I feel like I found my purpose, right? Like,
right.
if you can do that over and over, I mean, and from a business perspective, Makanda, there's so many more of these need to learns than there are want to get faster. Does that make sense? Like, there's a lot of people out there, if they just knew that, they look at it and go, well, there's no way I could do a triathlon because I don't know how to swim. Well, we can teach you. I mean, we can, right? You just gotta be, like you're saying, be willing to let the back fat fly because nobody else cares, right? Except
Yeah.
for you, right? I mean, we all go to these races. I mean, come to my swim practice and you'll see all types. You'll see everything. I mean, and that's, I think, is really disarming when you come to a normal person pool and see normal people. And we don't dive in. We don't do flip turns. We don't do much besides freestyle because that's what we're trying to learn for the sport. We don't have 12 swims a week. So we focus on these things and we learn how to swim without being tired. That's our goal, not learn to kick ass and beat everybody in the world because if you're fast, you're going to be fast, right? But anyway, you get my point. And I understand what you're saying about image because I've been there. I mean, it's been a long time, but when I was ripped to take my shirt off on the beach, no problem. Good 10-year stretch there where that shirt didn't come off for a while, right? But anyway, so I'll throw it back to you. I feel like I'm just starting to lose my focus.
No, this is really good. I mean, yeah, what really got me was letting the back fat fly. Like that to me, I am going to use that. Just let it fly. And I'm going to go to the little one life when I can start swimming again and be like, "Hey, we making it fly up in here." Okay. But real
Yeah, yeah,
talk, you talked about something about the A plus personalities, triple A personalities, quadruple A personality types in DC.
right.
But you also mentioned, the person who owns or works at the Royals Royce dealership. And I think we
Oh,
in triathlon in DC is so well, what do you do? That goes out the door when you're trying.
yeah,
I'm
man.
telling you, people
100%.
like my people I work with are like, how do you know these people? I'm like, because we've suffered together on the course, or we've suffered together. And I mean, that's judges, people who you don't care about what they do. You're like, but you're out here trying, you're out here running, you're out here doing this. There are so many people by just being a part of the endurance world that you will meet and not even know what they do because you're getting to know them from a humanity standpoint. And
Yeah.
when you learn who they are, you're like, you mean to tell me we've been swimming together in the lane the whole time and I didn't know? But you
I
don't
love
care
it.
about that.
It's almost like we were, almost like you and I have grown up in the same bubble because my observations are the same. And I love it too. I love to brag about the people on our team and what they've accomplished because most of them are so selfless. They don't tell anybody what they do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, you know, you see a guy who's the janitor at the local middle school riding his bike with the guy who's literally, nuclear engineer. It used to be driving submarines for the Navy, and they're just like best friends, right? But they have completely different educational backgrounds and professional backgrounds. And you know, one guy on our team named Ken, who I hope he catches wind of this because I brag about him all the time and he knows it. And my 5-year-old is into space, but he works for NASA. He's a space engineer. And you remember when the Hubble telescope went up and it sent back a blurry vision because something wasn't adjusted right? Well, he's the engineer who built the tool that the astronaut held in his hand to fix the Hubble telescope. And he's one of the slowest triathletes at any race Greg Hawkins puts on. He'll be the guy that finishes DFL at just about everything, but he's literally touched humanity. You know what I mean? Like he's literally touched humanity. He's like, um, he built something that fixed the Hubble. And think about what the Hubble did for mankind and science and everything else. And I'm like, and I'm just a triathlon coach. I just taught you how to swim. That's it. Like it's just fast. It does. Like it fascinates me. You're right. Nobody cares how much money you make. Nobody cares really what kind of bike you ride. If you're in the right group of people, they just want you to have the right attitude and be supportive and have fun.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Wow, Ed, this has been so, so good. And I'm glad that we've been able to talk about the gamut. And, being in this sport since 1999, what this makes it 26 years for you. You've seen a lot. You've been through a lot. I would like for you to talk about the last person you talked about is like, he may not finish a lot of races, but a brilliant, he's brilliant in his career. Can you take us through the ebbs and flows of successes in being in this sport and racing long enough to maybe experience those unglamorous moments of the sport, and how do you work
For
through that?
yourself, for
Huh?
myself, for myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
people think, I'll say people think that, you know, being a coach or having grown up a swimmer or whatever, that's maybe even the swim leg came easy to me, but it doesn't matter where you come from. Experience in the sport is everything. And everything that I coach, everything that I teach, every bonehead mistake that I try to get people to avoid are ones that I made myself, right? Usually more than once. It usually takes me messing something up twice to really remember that this is a mistake and you need to learn from it. But for sure, I remember again, super confident in my swimming. I was in my 20s and really fit at the time and cocky and thinking, hey, I just, swim and a bike and a run. But so my first race, it was on the Eastern Shore in Salisbury, Maryland. It was called the Salisbury Sprint. Um, but then the next race was Eagle Man, the half Ironman, and I only entered it because I knew I might as well do a half if I'm going to do a full, right? I didn't really have a coach or anything, so I didn't know that Eagle Man was at the time. It was still a qualifier for Ironman Hawaii. That and St. Croix were the only two half Ironmans that were qualifiers for the World Championship at Kona. That doesn't exist anymore, but back then, what that would do is draw world class athletes from all over the world because they're chasing these Kona slots without having to punish themselves and podium at another Ironman, right? Like what the sport had become. So I just didn't realize how fast the field would be. And I was young, so I was in the first wave. Pros were still racing with us at the time in the first wave. They didn't have their own wave. And I knew by looking at their times that I could swim with those guys. But I just had never raced in a real competitive environment like that. And it was still mass starts versus time trial starts. I don't know, 100, 200 people in my wave, 150. I have no idea. But I knew that I would be the stronger swimmer. I was expecting everyone just to go out and be aerobic, which is what you do in an open water mile for triathlon. But there's so many inexperienced people there that there was sprinting happening, right? And you've seen it before. I know you have people with the 6 feet kick, flailing, beating. I call it beating the crap out of the water. It makes them feel good because they're trying so hard. But obviously, that's, you know, it's not helpful. But so anyway, I got myself caught up in the same moment, right? Like I was in this literally in the same moment as everybody else. I've been looking around going, what don't I know? Why am I getting passed by all these people and why are they swimming so fast and trying so hard? Next thing I know, I'm in a full blown panic attack, which I'd never experienced before, a panic attack. And so I just, being a swimmer is pretty comfortable. I just kind of pulled myself out of the mess 10 yards out to the outside, flipped on my back, and just collected myself, right? And was like, God, man, you do not race a mile like this. I got myself together anyway. My point is just to tell people that experience does matter and that complete failure on my part, like in this panic attack and all that's something that I reference when I teach people all the time of how to approach an open water swim and how to expect people to be misleading you by doing the wrong thing, right? Just don't focus them, focus what we've learned. Here's our race strategy, all these, mantra that I give people to share. But also that morning in that transition area, I didn't know what to do. I had basically brought everything I owned in a suitcase, right? And I'm looking at people like taping the goose to their top tube and lining up their nutrition bars and stuff. And I didn't even know. I mean, Power Bar was just coming out at the time, I think, and all that stuff. And I had some smashed up peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, some Ziploc bags of pretzels, right? Like had no idea what I was doing. And so I'm like trying to tape my pretzel bag to my top tube, not even really understanding why they're doing all these things. And one guy just looks at me and he looks at my food and he's like, I guess you don't believe in Power Bar or Cliff or whatever it was. And I'm just looking at him going, I have no idea what you just said. Right. I'm just just figuring it out. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes. Bought my first wetsuit, put it on in my house, thought I looked awesome. Then went to the race and found out that it was too small because within 400 yards I couldn't lift my arms over my head because it was so short it was like lifting, 5 pound weights. It was just pulling on my shoulders. So within like 400 yards, my shoulders were on fire. So I just kicked on my back, kicked the next 400 yards of the race. I've got them all. I've got all the stories in the world I could share, all the mistakes, all the humilities, because, you know, we've been through them, but it's a cool part to share your stories with people like that. And to be able to coach from experience is something I rely on a lot, to know what it feels like to bonk, to make those mistakes. So I
Hmm.
don't know if I hit the nail with that one, but
No,
yeah.
that's pretty good. I mean, that was your second race, right? The Eagle Man was your second race.
Eagle Man was my second race, yeah, and so I still finished. I would say one of the top, probably the top 20 or 30 swims of the day, and I'm out of course on my Quintana Roo to Kilo $700 aluminum bike, right? And I'm riding down the road. Oh, this is another funny one. Riding down the road on the right side of the road, and I'm getting passed because, as you know, this is Eagle Man, right? This is my first big deal race. I've never heard a disc wheel before. I never heard people shifting gears with disc wheels, and that knock that it makes, that sound, and the sound of a bike going 30 miles an hour as it passes you when you're doing 14, right? It was just overwhelming and caught me off guard at how fast everyone was. And then knowing pros were there, I decided that I would be the nice guy that I am, obviously, and I would just ride in the middle of the road, just just to make room for the people that were racing to try to win. That was my mindset. And I spent the next 56 miles committing a position foul because I didn't even know the rules of the race. And I even had two officials right up next to me. And at the time, officials weren't allowed to talk to athletes when the race after the race had started, and that's changed recently, but it had been that way for like 2 decades. And so I had these officials, they would help you before the race. That was what they're there to do, educate before and after the race. But during the race, they were to keep the race safe and enforce the rules. And they would just point at me and be like, point. And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not trying to race. I'm just trying to make room for everybody else, right? And I got to the end of the race, and my dad was like looking at the results. He's like, "You got a bunch of penalties, man." And I was like, "For what?" Right? And they were all position fouls. It was just me riding in the center of the lane for no reason. It was blocking or position. Um, so yeah, that was another funny one. And I had a great race, made a lot of mistakes, right? But I was young, and when you're young, you can do anything. And um, so then what those penalties did was it forced me to read the rules. And I was like, oh, who knew, right? There's rules. So I have this list of 10 most commonly violated rules that I go through everybody over and over and over again because we just don't think about them. It's different. So I've definitely learned a lot. I've coached a lot more than I raced though, because I stopped racing. My last race I want to say was like 2009 or something like that. And I'm looking to maybe get back into it down the road, but I really enjoy coaching, and that's something that I couldn't have said about being a consultant. And my business is more than just coaching. It's running the business, which is primarily a social outlet. The coaching piece is important, very important. It's critical, but it's a small percentage of where our time is spent as an organization. Um, and preparing for weekend rides and runs where afterwards there's a barbecue and we have SAG drivers that come. And so we try to really work on making sure that no matter how fast or slow you are, that you always have that community there when you finish your workout. And that's led us to start and stagger our start times based on people's goals and ability. So people riding 100 training for Ironman might start at first light. And then we have an 8 a.m. start for people that are doing 30-mile rides, right? And the whole goal of timing our starts is that everyone finishes around the same time when there's a barbecue or something. So food and drink are what drive social. And so this is really kind of like, as much as I talk about loving to coach, and I do, and helping people, which I do, that's fulfilling. The hardest part of the business is the social piece, like Julie, the cruise director on the, or the, social director. I spend most of my time with that type of stuff. Like you alluded to the tent and the porta potties, and all these things require permits and shopping trips and cooking and all that stuff. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. But I just would like people to know, if they're just catching wind about Team Z, is that one of the things is that we really are, stealing from Hash House Harriers. They're a running club with a drinking problem, or a drinking club with a running problem, I think is how they define themselves. And so I think that's what we are. Is we're a social club with a triathlon problem, right? So the social piece is as important, if not more, than the training. And there are people on our team who do not race but train with us. There are people on our team who thought that they would make the attempt to become a triathlete and decided it wasn't right for them, but they like our community so much that they stay on and just help me run it. They volunteer to drive their cars, and at our group rides. Maybe they'll do a relay here or there, but they don't train anymore, and that's cool. Like I want people to know, if they wanted to hear a message about our team, is you can make whatever you want of Team Z. The only thing that I ask is you understand that we're here to make sure everyone feels welcome. Everybody. I don't care how scared you are or how far to the back of the pack you are, as long as you are grounded in reality and know that you have to do the work. I can't do it for you. It's okay to be who you are and be on this team. And that's all I expect anyone to understand, whether they're here to chase Ironman qualifying slots or, run from something, which is what, I don't know, I think most of us are doing here. I mean, let me ask you this, McKen. How many well balanced 45-year-old people do you know who have, like, let's say 3 kids at home, their own business, they're wildly successful, crazy busy, and they're looking for some 20-hour week hobby to just fill the cracks, right? It's like, how do I find, most people that come to us, they're looking to get somewhere, get through a relationship that wasn't going the right way, to lose weight, to find themselves, as they were, like me, right? Find yourself what you once were, right? Pull myself out of this bad path of drinking myself to sleep at night instead, right? Giving yourself a reason to wake up and go train. And so I love the sport. I love that it presents these challenges that are scary, because it really creates this opportunity for us, people like us, to do what we do and teach. So here I am rambling again.
No, I love it. And that's a good segue to sort of kind of wrap up. I think we didn't, I asked about your first, or maybe I didn't ask about your first, but you gave us so many examples of different challenges on your second that qualified for your first as well. So thank you for sharing with us. We have one more part where it's called rapid fire. And just for the record, at the beginning of the call, I said, and I realized what Team Z stood for. When you mentioned that Team Z was just a placeholder.
Why didn't we change it? Right?
No, because now I thought it was named at Z because of your last name.
Yes, but it was still a placeholder. We called it Team Z because my last name is Zerkle. But the whole idea was that we would figure out a cooler name eventually. But we just started to brand stuff. Like, we got a tent that said Team Z on the side of it. And then, so there's no real meaning besides, yes, it is my last name, but there wasn't a whole lot of thought put into it. Now, the logos and the branding and all that was one of my original members. She was in, corporate marketing and design, and she was an artist, and she designed everything for us. The little SBR dudes that are Z's that look like swimmer, biker, runner, right?
Oh,
and then the logo, you'll never know. You'll never know unless you try. Like, they're on that little blanket back there too.
Wow.
But yeah, she even picked the color, which is,
Wow.
as you know, it stands out on the course, our bright green. Like, it's just luck. I mean, I'm telling you, you do what you love and be honest and be nice. And everyone likes to share what they're good at. Everybody does. And so the real benefit, Team Z's benefited by people contributing their skills and abilities, knowledge, KSAs, right, to our community. I mean, one woman just took my training plans and put them into Training Peaks so that people can access. And I'm like, just because she wanted to do it for herself, and so why not everybody else? Our team has a custom website, private website, that's phenomenal. It's phenomenal what it does for us and the way we communicate. And it was built for me for free by another member who's not even on our team anymore. he just found it. He's out in California, and he was like, "Hey, this would be perfect for you." And so I modified this, and here's how you. I mean, it's really awesome to be a part of something like that, and I do really feel kind of I feel fortunate. Like I'm not saying I don't work hard because I work my tail off, but it was just me being who I am that led to this, and I feel really lucky. Lucky.
Yeah.
Presents any job presents its challenges, but I do see myself really as just the steward and protecting what other people started.
And like we said, whenever you try beginners luck, you always win. And I think you've exemplified that in so many of the things that you said. You're doing it because you love it. You're pouring into people. And when you pour into people, people remember how you left them and how you made them feel. And that's invaluable. And so what you've done is created an invaluable place where people can feel seen, loved, and heard, which allows them to want to contribute and give back. And that's, I think, the impetus of what we all want. We want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to have community. We want to have these things. And I just say, I applaud you. I'm glad that we are finally able to make this happen. I've learned so much, and I hope you as the audience have learned as much as well, and will take some of these nuggets from this podcast and be able to implement it in your own space, wherever that may be. And we're going to get to this rapid fire. We may have to have a part two, maybe with some of your team members, but you said you wanted to see, or you hope that one of your teammates could come by this. You can share it with them. So you will have the links and you can share it with your people so that they could hear you brag about how amazing your team is.
Really my style, but
it's going to
yeah,
be today.
Sure. Yeah, the one thing I love your closing statement there. I would agree 100 with every word except you said this was that you created, and I did not. I'm just saying I've nurtured it. I promise you I've worked plenty hard, but it was just luck. I'm telling you, I feel super fortunate for all the people who help me every day, every week. We have lots of people on this team that give of their time to help us make it work. So I just want people to be aware that I'm just a figurehead. Couldn't be done without everybody else too. So fire away on the rapid fire.
Thank you for contributing your gift and being a good steward. So yes, touche to that corrected statement.
I just don't want. I don't want people, especially my team, because they know how hard everybody works. So I want to make sure they get their credit too. So
that's right, because you're going to share this with them so they can get it. That's exactly right. Exactly. Okay. All right. What's your favorite leg of the race?
This has to be rapid fire, huh? Well, to be honest with you, it's not swim because I don't like getting wet. I hate getting cold, right? So I would probably say the run is my favorite leg if I've done the first two legs right.
Okay, that's fair.
The bike is hard because it requires the most discipline, and in triathlon, the bike is not a bike. It's not a bike race. We all want to race our bikes, but we need to be setting up our run. You know what I mean? So it's kind of frustrating to hold back on the bike, but you got to. So
absolutely. Yeah. So, favorite song?
Well, Baby Shark jumped into my head because of Gerardo Parra with the Nationals, and now at the same time, I had my first baby, right? So it kind of has become something in our family. We even have little shark costumes for both my toddler and infant sons to run around in, but also that I like this John Lennon song, "Beautiful Boy." Again, because of my kids. It's just something that's on my playlist a lot. It makes me think about my children.
Okay. You currently are saying you didn't say this to everyone, but you're on a journey of continuing to improve yourself. So while you're on this journey, what is your go-to workout?
Well, trying to get back to where exercise is more than just for me, like I've been guaranteed the hour walk with my dog in the woods, single track every day, which might involve some, super zone 2 or low zone 1, even jogging. But I was so overweight, Makanda, like that running at some point was almost irresponsible because of injuries I was creating for manufacturing for myself, which would be setbacks. So working on literally just portion control and foods to get to the point where I can start training significantly again, because now I got a knee surgery coming up to fix a meniscus issue. I've been working with some PTs that are good friends to help me sort out some tendonitis issues in my Achilles. I mean, it's all just whatever hard luck stories. But so I've lost again 40 pounds. When I get the knee fixed and I think I want to lose another 15 before I start running again. And I'll do that under the guidance of my friend Carrie Kramer at Resurgent Sports Rehab, Carrie Webb now, to help me get my running back in order. And when I do, then I think I'll probably try and start racing again. I'd like to, but the driver for me hasn't been racing. It's been
I just
being
wanted
around.
to know what your go-to workout was. What's your
Yeah,
go-to?
sorry, baby.
You
Just to
gave
be
me
there
a
for my kid.
whole
Yeah.
thesis.
So right now, my go-to workout is walking my
Walking.
dog. Let's put it that way.
I love it.
1
But
hour.
on the flip side, because I'm a heavier young lady, Lloyd Henry teaches chi running. And so chi running has helped to save my knees and save my life. So, or get me to love running again. So just want to throw that out there for when you are healthy and, have had your surgeries.
Yeah, we teach the same principles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same stuff.
Um, what were you a transition minimalist, Goldilocks, or kitchen sink space hoarder? Well, I think I know the answer to that when you brought your whole suitcase. So never mind.
I
Bad
know,
question.
but the funny thing is, I would say more like now, if I were like, I'm a minimalist in that I, I don't even have a computer on my bike, and I haven't worn a watch since I quit consulting. And so once I learned about heart rate training and cadence, and I had all those things in my head, I know what it feels like to be in the proper zones. I like to ride my bike, not for the performance or the data or all of that. So when we would race, I'm the guy with, the bucket and a few things in it, not the
Okay.
big bag and all that, because it took what I loved and made it a job, right? All these extra things. So I just wanted to be simple and feel the wind in my hair and look at the beautiful scenery while at the proper cadence and heart rate, right? Of course, but yeah, so minimalist, I would say.
I'm scared to ask you any more questions. What?
Just because set up, right? Right.
This part is where it's a little bit more rapid. So, where's your favorite place to bike since you like to let it flow through your hair in the wind?
Right.
Favorite place?
I would say Davidsonville, Maryland.
Oh, okay. And this is a question that I'm making up specifically for you. What's the favorite meal that you like to prepare for your team before a race?
Last year I did a few new things which were fun, with some encouragement from people who've been around kitchens more than me. But as you know, I mean, I would be feeding maybe 100 people for dinner out of our trailer or whatever. So I used to rely a lot on the easy lasagnas and, meatballs and pastas and stuff like that. But this year I did some huli huli chicken, which was good. Huli huli chicken, and we did another one which I'm blanking on, but basically using chicken thighs has been my new thing, because you can come up with so many different recipes and cook in advance. That's the key, is I can prepare a lot of things in advance, and it holds together really well to be a special meal in a grass field 50 miles from your closest grocery store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that, yes. Yeah.
Well, chicken thighs are a win these days for, I think, so many people. And with that said, we don't let anyone leave the podcast without answering this question. And I think you could be able to answer because you've done all the distances. Do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
Would pee on the bike if I could, but I'm the stage fright guy. So I was in infinite jealousy of the guy riding down the WNOD trail one day who was just sitting up, no hands, and there's just this stream shooting out like over his shoulder into the ditch and I'm just like, because I have to go stop, hide behind a tree somewhere, right? So yeah, I mean, we don't pee in public on courses, right? Because that's illegal, of course. But yeah, no, I wish I would if I could, but I can't. I have to stop and go to the restroom.
Yeah, that is illegal. But on the W&D in regular clothes where you have to go back home, that's
Matanda,
disgusting.
the first time my wife peed on herself on the bike, it was racing Ironman Lake Placid, and it has been downpouring, and that's what enabled her to do it because she's real, she's the shower twice a day kind of lady. And when she finished the race, that's the first thing she said to me over the finish line was, "I did it! I did it!" I said, "You did what?" She goes, "I peed on myself on the bike," and I'm like, "Yes, yes, you did it!" Right? It's amazing.
It's a rite of passage for people,
that,
especially because I'm like that. I'm like, oh.
that's another one. Another one is how to farmer blow when you're on your bike without, to clear your nose without getting it on the people behind you.
Oh, you have to angle it a certain way.
Right. Absolutely. But
yeah. Right. Well, oh my gosh, y'all, this has been so good. Thank you so much, Ed, for joining us. This has been a joy. I love when I can have people on. Be sure or remember to like, share, and follow us on all your major platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. You can listen to this on your favorite platform. Be sure to share it with your friends. And we're on YouTube. So if you want to see this and see my cool little Try Beginner's Luck in the corner in the upper third, please do so. I'm excited about that. We're going to get better. This is me doing this. So if you know anybody who can do a graphic that doesn't look weird like this, hit me up. With that said, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines, and we are out for today. Peace and happy April, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.